So Pacific Rim, otherwise known as the movie that definitely maybe destroyed a big chunk, or Pacific Rim Uprising, otherwise known as the movie that probably destroyed a big chunk of my childhood. Yeah, this was a rough one. So anyways, it's directed by Stephen Knight, and it's one of those things where there's like a whole bunch of controversy on whether or not Guillermo del Toro would come back for the sequel, because he directed the first one. And I absolutely love the first one. It is like one of my favorite movies. I've seen it like 5 times. I don't care how many times people in high school say it is one of the dumbest movies. It is not. It is amazing. I don't care how bad the acting is in it or how simple the plot is. It hits a good just part of my heart that's just wanting to see giant robots fight giant monsters. So Stephen Knight directs this one, and I don't know why they chose this dude. He directed a few episodes of Spartacus and a few episodes of Daredevil and something else, but really for the most part, he just doesn't seem like he's that great of a director or that experienced of a director. And when I first saw that, like, it got me a bit worried, but, you know, I watched Daredevil, which was okay, and I never watched Spartacus, but I assumed it had good action sequences. So I was like, okay, I'll at least get good action sequences in this. And I just didn't with Pacific Rim Uprising. Like, every single, I just wanted to see monsters versus giant Jaegers, and you don't see that happen that much. You don't even see really a real Jaeger show up till the last part of the movie. And these Jaegers just don't look, I mean, not Jaegers, but these monsters just don't look nearly as cool as the ones in the last movie. And that really got me bummed. You do see robots fight other robots, but at some level, like, it just kind of looks like people fighting people, only wearing giant costumes. And that's a problem. So one of the things I did like in the movie, I did like John Boyega, the guy who plays Finn in Star Wars in this movie. He seemed pretty cool. He had some pretty awful lines going on in this, but other than that, I was like, he's Finn, he's cool, I like this dude. Other than that, and then there was also Clint Eastwood's son, Scott Eastwood, and they have some real beef going on throughout this entire movie, and I don't really understand why. Like, I don't feel like if you just, like, trap 2 guys in a room, like, they'll really just end up hating each other, because most of the time, just when I hang out with guys, it turns out to be pretty cool. But anyways, so he was also in this movie, and then the rest of the cast was just kind of there, you know, like, they didn't really do much. It's kind of weird because they have all of these characters that are like little kids that are training to become Jaeger pilots. And like, they kind of set it up like it's going to be a Kingsman scenario where they have to go through training and stuff. And that would have been a really cool plot point in this movie, but they really did not dive into that. And I didn't like any of these kids in this movie. It was like they just casted all of the members of Nickelodeon TV shows. Like, no joke, seriously, I was watching this with my little cousin, and each, like, Jaeger pilot, she was pointing at him, and she's like, that kid's from Jesse. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. So when you finally get to the battle parts where they're dressed up in these giant Jaegers, things are about to go down, all you see is the kids from Big Time Rush, and they're like, man, that monster's huge, let's do this, it's time to live this big time. And I'm like, no, this movie, sucks, it's not that good. And there's another thing. So they do bring back Charlie Day and that other scientist from the first movie, and I know a lot of people were just controversial about that, about how cartoony they were. Personally, it didn't bother me too much. I felt the movie was just, you know, it felt like a cartoon. But they went over the edge with these guys. They were way too animated. And there's one plot point with Charlie Day that just is straight up like disturbing and gross and makes no sense. You know, as weird as it sounds, like, you could like actually see some legitimacy in the first movie. Like, it made you feel like you could be part of that world, that it felt real, and it would actually be scary living in this world with giant monsters attacking the city. But you didn't get that feeling at all with this one. You just felt like you were in a cartoon movie, and I really didn't enjoy that. Another thing that bothered me was the cinematography in this movie. In the first movie, one of the things that made it so great is Guillermo del Toro is just amazing with that. You know, every scene, you could just tell how huge these robots were. They walked all slowly. They would pick up boats and just smash like the monsters' faces in with it, and it was cool. And with this one, you didn't get that sense of scale. You didn't feel like when these robots were walking through the city that they were gigantic tanks. And the same with these monsters. They there was nothing like just interesting about them. With each one of the monsters in the last movie, you know, you felt like you remembered what each one of them looked like. One of them looked like a gigantic gorilla, the other one looked like a gigantic lizard. I couldn't tell you what a single one of the monsters in this movie looked like, and that's really just kind of a bummer. And another thing is, once these Jaegers started fighting the monsters, the battle went on like that. Granted, there is a lot of action going on in this movie, but not a lot of memorable action. And, you know, that's what you want in a movie like this. It's just a movie that you could turn your brain off and watch. So, you know, because of that whole controversy, I was just really thinking about it and who I'd really want for a director like this. And instead of this Steven DeKnight guy that I've never heard of before, if you can't have Guillermo del Toro, who is perfect for this, it'd be cool to see someone like Garrett Edwards, who directed Star Wars Rogue One and Godzilla, because he really does an amazing job with the sense of scale in these movies. When Godzilla shows up, you see how massive he is. Each one of his footsteps feels like it would be devastating. And also, you know, even in Rogue One, you see how cool the AT-AT-CTs are when they just kind of move around and seem all animal-like. So he would have been my dream director. He also stays very true to the source material. Godzilla was very much like the old 1950s Godzilla movies, and Star Wars Rogue One just paid a lot of respect to the first Star Wars movies. And that would have been cool to see him, because he knows what made the first Pacific Rim great. So ultimately, this movie was just a disaster. It was disappointing, and you know, I could see it would be fun if you take like maybe your third grade little brother to this movie, but ultimately, I just have to say, I hated this movie. So thank you guys very much for watching this review. I hope you liked it. I hope you have a better idea of what you would want in a movie and just what type of movies you would want to see. But yeah, sorry, just wait till Netflix with this one. Even that, just skip through the scenes, because it's a monstrosity. So see you guys later.